Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some breaking news coming out of Eastern Europe, and I'll tell you what, right now, things are not looking good. You see, just the other day, the Ukrainian military, led by none other than Volodymyr Zelenskyy, actually attempted to assassinate Russian leader Vladimir Putin by unleashing a swarm of combat drones towards Putin's private helicopter. Now, altogether, Russian air defenses were able to neutralize 46 of these Ukrainian attack drones, ultimately saving Putin's life in the process, which is a very good thing, and I'll tell you why. Had this assassination attempt been successful, it's an almost total certainty that Russia would have gone nuclear, quite literally carpet bombing all of Ukraine, which would ultimately kickstart a World War III type of scenario. And so, folks, what do you say we just go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room for a moment? Very clearly, Zelenskyy is not interested in participating in the peace talks that President Trump has attempted to broker between Ukraine and Russia, because if he was, he wouldn't be trying to assassinate Vladimir Putin and start World War III. Because to be very clear, peace talks are still ongoing, and right at this very moment, President Trump is still actively working to bring about a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. So really, this attempted assassination can only be viewed as a direct insult to not only President Trump, who has done everything he can to help bring about peace, but it's also a direct insult to all of us Americans who have, in large part, helped fund Ukraine's war effort. The truth is, Zelenskyy just attempted to undermine and subvert everything that President Trump has been working to accomplish since stepping back into the White House. It's absolutely insane. But now, folks, as if this entire situation couldn't get even worse, it actually does. But before we take a look at that, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. In response to this attempted assassination, Putin drastically overreacted by unleashing an indiscriminate barrage of missiles and rockets towards various locations in Ukraine, ultimately endangering numerous civilians. And so right now, President Trump is actually extremely upset with not just Zelenskyy, but also Vladimir Putin as well, saying this: "I've always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot into cities in Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. I've always said that he wants all of Ukraine, not just a piece of it, and maybe that's proving to be right, but if he does, it will lead to the downfall of Russia." Likewise, President Zelenskyy is doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. Everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it, and it had better stop. This is a war that would have never started if I were president. This is Zelenskyy's, Putin's, and Biden's war, not Trump's war. I am only helping to put out the big and ugly fires that have been started through gross incompetence and hatred. So folks, like I said, right now, President Trump is not happy. In fact, he also had this to say about the entire situation. Take a look.
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. At this point, given the current circumstances, the peace deal in Ukraine that President Trump has been working so hard to obtain seems like it's almost a complete and total impossibility. As they say, it takes two to tango, and the reality is, at this point, both Zelenskyy and Putin are the only ones responsible for this complete and total breakdown in peace talks. As you all know, President Trump's America First foreign policy prioritizes de-escalation, focusing on U.S. interests over funding endless foreign wars. And the reality is, Zelenskyy's provocative actions, like this attempted assassination, just shows complete and total disregard for President Trump's goal of bringing about peace. For years now, American taxpayers have been generously funding Ukraine's war effort, yet Zelenskyy's recent actions completely disrespects all of this support. And I'll tell you what, despite what the radically progressive media has to say about it, President Trump very clearly isn't some brainless Putin shill. When Putin oversteps his boundaries, President Trump speaks up about it and puts him back in his place. But the truth is, Zelensky's aggressive behavior does absolutely nothing other than pour fuel on all of these already existing tensions, hindering President Trump's efforts to broker peace. And once again, here's the very bleak reality. Had this assassination attempt actually been successful, Putin's government in Moscow would have immediately started dropping nuclear bombs, which just further underscores the urgency of President Trump's diplomatic efforts. So at this point, I think it's safe to say that the America First agenda pretty much demands that we stop funding and supporting Zelenskyy, given all of his reckless provocations. Because the reality is, if Zelenskyy does something to kick off World War III, as he almost did just the other day with this attempted assassination, right now the United States is complicit in the entire situation because guess what? We all here in America have, very regrettably, been Zelenskyy's largest financiers. We have been directly funding all of this insanity going on in Eastern Europe for years now, and because no one other than President Trump is actually trying to de-escalate the situation, every single day, thousands of lives are being lost and millions of dollars are being wasted. And as President Trump likes to say, if the 2020 election had gone just a little bit differently, literally none of this would even be happening right now. As he pointed out earlier, this is Zelenskyy's war, Putin's war, and Joe Biden's war. Trump had nothing to do with the outbreak of this entire situation. So really, President Trump's tireless work to bring this war to an end is really just a charitable act out of the goodness of his own heart, but he has absolutely no obligation to single-handedly solve this issue. In fact, he can't single-handedly solve this issue. If the two primary parties involved, Ukraine and Russia, refuse to work with President Trump's goal of de-escalation, then it's never going to happen. And that seems to be the direction that all of this is going in. So I don't know about all of you, but in my humble opinion, I think it's time to cut Zelenskyy loose and wrap up this entire situation. This isn't our problem, it never should have been our problem, and going forward, we need to focus on all of our own issues here in America. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that is what it looks like to put America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.